Welcome to Faith with Flavor, the place to be to season and encourage your faith. I'm your host, Donna Clayton. When difficulties arise, it's hard sometimes to look at the bright side. But what if that is the only thing you were ever taught to do? Arielist and motivational speaker Jen Breaker was born without legs and was put up for adoption as a baby. She found out later that her childhood idol was a well-known gymnast named Dominic Motivational and also her biological sister. Jen is here to share her life journey and how she managed to overcome several obstacles in her life. But first, another thing you need to overcome obstacles is perseverance, which can only be accomplished through faithfulness. At my last speaking engagement, I share how faithfulness got me to where I am today. Take a look. You know, when I was in the prayer ministry, I showed up to work on time. I was always faithful. I was always diligent. I, never missed a beat. Because, the Word of God says in Colossians 3:23, and whatever you do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men. And I took that to heart. It was my motto. My faithfulness was then seen by my boss, who then promoted me to prayer supervisor, and I got to supervise the prayer department. And I kept being diligent, but I did have something burning within my heart, this desire, and this desire was, call me crazy, but I wanted to have my own Christian talk show where I get to brag about the Lord. And when I told my friends about it, they all looked at me like, sure, Donna, okay. But I couldn't help it. It was one of those things. Have you ever had a dream that's just burning in your heart and nobody understands it but you and God? You guys know. You know that desire is there for a reason. And that was one of those. And so I did my due diligence, which meant that I was volunteering my time with the TBN's youth network, Juice TV. And thank God, they gave me the opportunity to be able to host with them, on the side, when I was not working, which meant that I wasn't getting paid for it. But again, I'm going back to sacrifice and being faithful with what God has placed in front of you. You need to be faithful in the pursuit of what God has for your life. Amen. If you just started tuning into the show, that was a look at my latest speaking engagement where I talk about being faithful with exactly what God has placed in front of you. If you would like to book me for a speaking engagement at your church, please find me at lifewithdonna.com and fill out a contact form to get in touch with me. And now, without further ado, let's meet today's guest, Arielist and motivational speaker, Jen Breaker. Jen, welcome to Faith with Flavor.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
We've been trying to make this happen for a while now. We were just
Yes.
talking off camera.
Yes.
And now I think this is the perfect time. I think somebody watching right now needs to hear the message that you have to bring to the table. So thank you first and foremost for being here.
Thank you.
And for those who are not familiar with you, can you give us a little background story on how you came to know the Lord?
Background story. Well, I was born without legs, put up for adoption, left in the hospital, and adopted by just the most amazing family in the middle of nowhere. And they were a Christian home. Raised me just very normal, very mainstream, normal, whatever you want to say. And so, they just said you can do anything you want, and they meant it. I did basketball, softball, volleyball,
Wow.
power tumbling, all against able-bodied athletes. It wasn't some special kind of sport, but that was normal for me. That was normal. And so they put their money where their mouth was, right? Like they really believed what they said. And, even though it was a Christian home and I was raised that way, it wasn't forced upon me. So it was my choice at 13 to choose to get baptized, saved and baptized. And then since then, it's just been an evolution of growing closer and closer to God.
I love that. And so did you always know that you wanted to be an Arielist?
No, actually I was going into fashion. That was
Really?
my whole, all through high school. So for 5 years, that was it. That was the plan, and when I'm determined, it's happening, so it was happening. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, finish school, go get the regular kind of basic stuff done at a community college, and then go off to either probably New York, the Fashion Institute in New York. That's kind of where I was figuring. And moved to Orlando when I was 19, did an internship at Disney World. Well, I never moved back after the internship. Like, I extended, and then I just ended up living in Orlando. And the exact month that I was going to go back to enroll in school in Orlando was when I met my old partner, Nate. And I was at this crossroads. I either go back to school and continue school and go down the fashion path, or I go down this path to become an acrobat and Arielist. And I just knew, I was like, school's always going to be there. Like, I can always go back to that. But this opportunity to perform, that's definitely got an expiration date. So I chose that, and definitely the right choice. And my partner and I ended up touring with Britney Spears, featured act all over the world with her, and then just with what we were doing. So silk acts, and then a trampoline act, and not a backyard trampoline. These are like these are competitive, where you catch some serious air on these trampolines.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's so awesome. I love that you grew up in a family that really encouraged you to go after your dreams, and you know, it's like you were born with this gift, you know, and then later down the line you find out that your sister is your idol. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I always loved gymnastics ever since I was a kid. That's why I started doing it. And I loved Dominique Motivational in particular. Now, I knew, so in my adoption records, it said that my biological family was from Romania. And so I always knew that. My parents were really open. So I knew I was Romanian, and I knew, even though she was on the US team, I knew she was Romanian. And I was like, we actually look alike. I mean, I was picking up on this at like 7 years old.
Wow.
And I was verbalizing this, you know? And I told my parents, like, yeah, we look alike. Well, I mean, we really look alike. What if we were related? Like, I actually did say that. Not that I actually thought that, but I did say that as a kid. And I picked up on the fact that we were both Romanian, that we looked alike. We're both like these small, you know, humans. And, and as a kid, that's enough to make you gravitate towards somebody, right? So I loved watching her. I was just like, this is so cool. And I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So even now, and when I was younger, I was like black. I was so brown because I was always in the sun. And so,
welcome to the club. No?
Right? I loved it. I loved it. And this like jet black hair. So, and I grew up in such a small town that no one looked like that. That's why I'm saying that. So even though you're like, well, in LA, it's like whatever, it's nothing.
Yeah.
But where I'm from, it was so cool to actually see someone that looked physically like me, my features. And so I think that added to the, like, me liking her, you know?
Yeah.
And then fast forward to almost 16 years old, I had asked my parents if there was anything they knew about my adoption, my biological family. Definitely did not. It was just a God thing, because I don't know why I would even think that, let alone ask that, knowing how open they had been. It's not like we were like some huge secret-keeping family, so it wasn't in the nature of that. And so God placed that there for me to ask. I did. Whole thing comes unveiled that Dominique was my biological sister.
Wow.
Yeah, and so...
How did you feel in that moment, finding out that your childhood idol is actually your sister?
Yeah. So in the moment, it was like, what? Come again? You're just like, you got hit upside the head and you're like ringing. Like, what? Just, you know, you're like blacked out for a second. It was like, and then I was excited. So I was like stunned, shocked, disbelief, excited. And then from my mom's perspective, though, this is interesting. And for years later, I didn't know this, but when she was looking at me, what she saw was like, I was just totally composed. And it was almost like I looked like, yeah, it kind of made sense. And that's not what I was feeling. But obviously, I think when something is so unbelievable to me, I just don't react that much. I'm just like, what? Like, you're just kind of stunned and you just sit there for a minute.
Yeah.
And obviously, on some level, it did make sense, because what I just told you as a kid, right?
Yeah.
But in that moment, that was like 20 steps here, the last one. And the first step was like, what? You know?
And
so
you actually reached out to her via a letter, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was a 4-year journey. So it didn't just happen. It had to be done with finesse. It had to be done right. It wasn't like, I'm trying to go be a crazy person and say I'm her sister. You know what I mean? So I was like, let me take a step back and try to do this professionally, you know?
Wow, you were so wise, even at a young age.
It was such a unique situation. It wasn't like you could just call her up, or it's all circumstantial, right?
Yes.
And that's life anyway. But So I was like, yeah, I got to do this and so it was actually several failed attempts, and the actual successful attempt came 4 years later at the very end of 2007, and then me, her, and my younger sister Christina, they grew up together. We all met in 2008, May of 2008.
Wow.
So
What
10
was
years
that
ago.
like for you, just meeting your sisters for the first time?
Yeah, it was surreal and equally normal at the same time, which doesn't even make sense. It's like contradicting each other. But that's just how it felt. It was like surreal on one hand because how is that? I mean, I've seen you on TV since I was a kid, and yet immediately when we met, we were sisters. And that just all went out the window. It wasn't like that anymore.
Aw.
You know, and we all look so much alike. We sound so much alike.
I've seen
you
pictures,
know.
yeah.
I mean, my younger sister, at the time, boyfriend, now husband, looked exactly like my ex. You know, I mean, it was
Really?
just, and we ordered the same foods, her and I, and we had the same voice, and my younger sister and I, and even my older sister and I have similar voices too. And so it was just, it was like these twins reunited with both of them. And I'm the middle, which is even more ironic. And I am such a hybrid of them.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just all the way kind of from every angle. And the year I met them, 2008, was the year my performing career started. So both of these huge moments in my life are coinciding hand in hand.
Wow.
And then growing together, really.
What is the greatest lesson that God has taught you so far?
Oh my gosh. There's so many. I don't even know if I can narrow that down, but you know what? Surrender is what's coming up to me. It is the toughest lesson, and I think the most current lesson, and definitely a forever thing. Like it's not just like, oh, I got it now, I'm good, bye. You know.
What have you had to surrender to the Lord?
Everything. You know that the things that people compliment me on, oh, your passion, your drive, your grit, your will, those things can also go against you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They're great things. I love that I have them. I love them in other people. But it's like any fire or any flame. You gotta learn how to balance it. You've gotta be tamed. I had to be tamed.
That's so good.
My whole life. I had to be like, okay, knock it down a little bit. Shave it off this, you know, calm down, girl. But so it is constantly refining me all around.
But you know what? I admire your parents so much. Bless their hearts. I mean, they took you in, loved you unconditionally.
Yep.
Look at the woman that you are today. I mean, thank God for them. How do you feel about them?
Definitely. They're the backbone, the spine, the heroes of the story, you know what I mean? Like of my life, because they're just so normal. That's the funny thing is like, they're not what you're thinking. They're not like this philosophical, like, whoa, we read this book and we raised her this way. It's like, no. They're like the literal opposite of that, you know? Small town, super simple, doesn't take much for them to like be happy. And it just made sense to them. They're like, well, why would we raise her any differently? I mean, and they really meant that. So they didn't go too far over into like coddling and sheltering me. And then they also didn't, oh, let's raise her up just because she doesn't have legs. It was neither of that. It was just, oh, let's see what she does.
I love it.
Really what it was, you know?
And now you're going to get to see what Jen Bricker does in this highlight video. Take a look at this.
I think walking by faith and not by sight has really helped me get through my entire life. And my parents believe that too. I mean, they said, you were born like this for a reason, on purpose, for a purpose, not by mistake. And I know for a fact that being born without legs was absolutely not a mistake. Totally on purpose. 100% for a purpose. And in no way a mistake. My inspiration and motivation behind everything I do is that I know I was made, I was created to do this. I didn't even want to be a speaker. Speaking was definitely something that was chosen for me, something I was just made to do. I thought that it would just be my retirement plan. I didn't think I would be speaking right now. I know there are plans for me. The fact that I was born without legs and I never thought it was impossible to be an acrobat or an aerialist or power tumbler or play softball or basketball or volleyball, all against able-bodied athletes. My favorite verse, which actually is what the title of my book was derived from, where the inspiration for my book came from, is Mark 9:23. Everything is possible to the one who believes. I don't do what I do for myself. I do what I do because it's my destiny. It's how I'm being used to touch people, to reach people. It's way bigger than just being about me.
If you just started tuning into the show, today I am sitting down with Jen Bricker, an aerialist and motivational speaker who was born without legs. What a beautiful video. I loved it.
Thank you.
And I loved what you said, because I think people need to hear this. You said that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you were born with a purpose, for a purpose. Can you dig deeper into that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. So it started out, as a kid, my parents would say, we've all heard God doesn't make mistakes. You're born like this for a reason. And it kind of sounds cliche because we've heard it over and over. But they also said you are answered prayer, which really was true. My mom couldn't have kids anymore. She had a hysterectomy. She had 3 boys. She wanted a baby girl.
Aww.
So it was like these 10 years of like praying for a baby girl,
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, so it was truly an answered prayer for them. But when they said, you were born like this for a reason, God doesn't make mistakes, they actually believed that. And as I got older and I saw that them putting their money where their mouth was again, right? So they backed up everything they had said by their actions. I just knew it wasn't them just saying that anymore. It was like, this is so real. And it was like, God just placed that in me. I think because I had to have it in order to become who I was supposed to be now and future me as well. So I just knew, I was always content in solid, concrete, like knowing, oh yeah, he didn't just, oh, I forgot to put legs on her, my bad, it wasn't like that, And I realized that actually through not having legs was the exact window, conduit, whatever, that was going to create the platform to reach millions of people.
Yes, because you are a motivational speaker. You travel all over the world sharing your message. What do you share with people when you go all over the world? Yeah,
I mean, I speak and then I do my aerial performing, and I have a book, so I do the book signing. So I kind of do a compilation of all 3 of those, or it can just be isolated speaking event or an isolated performing event. So I speak to so many different, corporate, finance, women, Asian, Middle East, everything, every kind of group, every kind of nationality, culture, whatever. And so I always tailor it a little bit, but I'm always sharing my story. It's always like Holy Spirit speaking through me. So it's whatever people need to hear, whether it's kids, whether it's just women, whatever it is. It's just really through sharing my story, encouraging people, and just really I know I have it all figured out. It's not like that. Look at my 10 steps to happiness. It's not like that. It's just this is what I've learned, and let me share this with you.
Now, every speaker, though, has like a core message.
Yeah.
Like the one that it's who you are. What is yours?
I would say the one thing that I always say, and it's at the end, is that everybody was born, first of all, everybody has value. Everybody is equal in that value. No one is better than anyone else, and no one's gifts and talents and abilities are better than anyone else's. And people have something to bring to the table.
Amen.
They have gifts, they have talents, and they have abilities, and through those, they can touch people's lives and change people's lives, because so many people don't think that they have value at all. And they don't think anyone pays attention to them, and they don't think that that what they do can affect anybody. And I just know that that's not true. I've seen it. I've seen it around the world.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's my one, like, I guess that would be the core thing.
Yeah, because, you know, all over the world, you just hear about all these people just taking their own lives for suicide. People that have it all.
Yep.
Or you would think that they would have it all.
Right.
And they're still, you know, not satisfied. What would you say to somebody that maybe is struggling with suicidal tendencies or just feels like they want to give up?
Well, it's so funny. I just did an interview, and the podcast was kind of about to help prevent suicide, you know, but through telling your story. So I say a couple things. There's a lot, and there's not one fix all, but a lot of things is when you're in that dark place, we tend to isolate. So I think reaching out to somebody, even though that's really hard and like the last thing you want to do, not doing it alone, trying to, you know, we're made to live in community and with people, and just life's more fun to do with other people, but
right?
it's so much more fun. So not isolating, reaching out to others, and, you know, there are some hard choices that we have to make. Like, I had a really hard time in my life, and in that time, it was like, people would say, you know, is happiness a choice, Jen? And I'm like, every single day, all the time, over and over. So I had placed feelings in this, like, high level of platform. So I put feelings above the reality and the truth. And that was a big lesson I had to learn, too, of like, okay, just because I feel fat and I'm a 00, like that just shows you how fantasy, how unrealistic feelings can be, to put all of your stock into that.
Yeah.
Right? So I think if we can make choices, not isolate, reach out to others, you know, and know that you actually have a gift. And for me, it was like when I was obsessing about being super skinny, I realized, I was like, wait a minute. So I'm totally caught up in being rail thin. Then I got rail thin. Now I'm caught up in, it's like a never ending cycle. But through all of that, I was blocking God working through me, and I wasn't able to help other people, not nearly as much, maybe 50% as much, because I was consumed in myself. And I was like, well, that's selfish.
I know, you know, some people that were adopted and they deal with some abandonment issues. Did you have that?
You know, I don't feel like as a kid I ever dealt with that. Like, I don't have memories of that. I don't feel like I ever identify with that, but I think, so when I was younger, my parents said, you know, don't hate your biological family, because the truth of the matter is, you don't know, like, you didn't walk in their shoes.
Yes.
So you don't know
That's good.
why they gave you up. And they're like, honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, the why, it doesn't matter, because you are answered prayer. Like, this is where you're supposed to be. This is exactly how it's supposed to work out. And they really believed that.
Amen.
You know, and then as my life unfolded, and I found out who my biological family was, I really realized, you know, even before that I knew, but even more so once I found out that I would have been raised in an abusive home, it's like God allowed me to dodge a huge bullet, you know? And so I don't think I had those abandonment issues.
Amen.
Yeah.
I want you to look into that camera for me, and I really feel in my spirit that there's somebody watching that keeps questioning the why. Why, God, did you allow this to happen? Why is this happening to me, Lord? Would you just encourage them?
Yeah. I used to be, still, sometimes I get so caught up on the why, so caught up. And it's just like, God, why? Why this? Why that? And I remember this one time in my life, and of course it was over a relationship, go figure. And I couldn't stop with the, why did this happen? But this, but he did that. And it was just this nonstop cycle of why. And it was like, God just was like, you know, I don't really owe you the answer. Like, you're kind of missing the entire point. And I was like, wow, you're right. Like, because that will paralyze you, it will stop you, it will stunt your growth, and it will keep you from moving forward. So I would encourage you, and I'm not saying it's easy, because I know it's not easy. I would just encourage you to let go of the why, because the why really doesn't matter. I know it seems like it matters, but it is not the most significant part, and just move forward and let it go.
Amen. Well said, Jen.
Yeah.
And you also have a book that you
Yes.
wrote. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so the book came out in end of 2016. It's called Everything is Possible, and it's just about my whole life. It's about it. I wouldn't say that it's just a biography. I wouldn't say that it's just a faith-based book, and I wouldn't say that it's a self-help book. It's kind of a combination of everything. So everything from love to faith to travel to fitness to body issue images. Body issues, women, like adoption, sibling, it's everything.
And the title comes from your life scripture, right?
Yes, yeah. Mark 9:23. Everything is possible to the one who believes.
Amen.
Because I was thinking of titles and I was like, okay, what's one saying, quote, motto, whatever, that would sum up how I live my life or how I feel about life or whatever. And I was going through all these different things, and I had a journal at the time, and it had Mark 9:23 on there, and it just like popped out. I'm like, oh my gosh, everything is possible. That's it. Oh my gosh, that's how I feel.
And it is. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for being here.
Yes,
you are
thank
such
you.
a blessing.
Thank you.
And I know that you encouraged our viewers, so thank you for taking time out of your day to be here.
Thank you.
And thank you at home for watching Faith with Flavor. I pray that this show has blessed you. And if it did, I would love to know. Please email me your thoughts, and you can find me at lifewithdonna.com and let me know. I want to leave you with a special word of encouragement. Mark 11:24 says, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them and you will have them. I don't know what your battle is today, but I know the one who overcame every single battle, and that is Jesus Christ. And if you're there wondering, just ask. Ask and believe that you have what you pray for, and you will have it. God bless you, and thank you for watching Faith with Flavor. See you next time.